to the scriptures, can you get us to a God?
Can I get you to a God? What do you mean by that?
Well, not necessarily the Christian God, but just the idea that there is a God. Can you establish that without the Bible, without the scriptures?
Let's see. How could I do this? Well, you would consider yourself to be an atheist, but were you the one who said that?
No, I'm a Christian.
Okay, so you agree that there's a God that exists then, right? Because you said you're
absolutely.
Okay, good. So
yeah, he's in this room.
Go ahead.
Never mind. I'll just mute. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah. So I mean, so me and you agree that there's a higher intelligence that exists, right? Because you said you're a Christian, right? So what do you mean by asking me to prove that a God exists if you agree that?
I didn't say prove. I'm saying for the advantage of everyone else in the room, because if you force someone who doesn't respect the scriptures to operate within there, you're not making a difference, and they're not going to take it seriously. So if you can establish first that there's reason to believe that there is a God, not for my sake, but for an agreeability in the room.
Okay, cool. I can do that. Now here's how I'll do it, because I've done my research on the scriptures, right? Here's how I can prove it, that it's reasonable to believe in the God of the Bible. Here's how I can prove it.
Go for it.
If you take certain events that took place in the Old Testament, I'll give one example.
No, that's not going to work.
Just hold out. You'll see what I'm
Yeah,
talking about.
let him go.
Did you know they actually found the physical remains of Noah's Ark exactly where the Bible said it was? Look it up. It's called, they found an ancient 5,000-year-old, 500-foot boat on the mountains of Ararat.
But that doesn't get us to a God.
But the biblical text is true, though.
No, it proves that at least that part of biblical text is accurate. It doesn't prove that it's all accurate or that there's a God. Men build boats without God's help.
Also, from what I remember reading about it, is that it wasn't a boat, it was wood.
So boats aren't made out of wood?
Yeah, but finding wood doesn't equal boat.
Oh, okay, cool.
Hey, this is not an easy room to just walk in and do things. And I'm not trying to torture you. I'm just trying to get you on the page that we have to operate from in order to include everyone.
Oh, I'll respect that. That's fine. How would I prove that there's a higher intelligence outside of the scriptures? I would say that the fact that, say for an example, even Charles Darwin said in his text when it comes to the idea of an eye, right? The eye is so complex that it could not have randomly came into existence by random evolution. Obviously, it had to have been designed by a higher intelligence, right? So if you take all of the factors into consideration, such as how the sexes can reproduce with one another, right? So there's male and female organs. We'd have to conclude, oh, well, that seems like it was intelligently designed that way. I mean,
so irreducible complexity.
Well, I would, I'd say that would be one of my proofs that I could go to how complex the world is. That it just doesn't seem reasonable to conclude that it all came into existence by blind chance.
Okay. I mean, we see different stages of eyes, and Charles Darwin also didn't know the mechanisms involved.
Yeah, I understand that, but like, how could by random chance the eye could have evolved over millions of years?
It's random chance within guided path, right? So you're going to get it's going to progressively build on itself. It's not like it has to reset the whole thing every time the dice rolls. Right? You roll a handful of dice.
Back.
Yeah, you roll a handful of dice, keep the sixes, then roll the rest of the dice and keep the sixes, and roll the rest of the dice and keep the sixes.
So we've been talking. The reason that this is so interesting is that we've been talking about this for 2 days now. And so we were Wildheart being an atheist. We were practicing philosophy, and we were talking about. Let's just focus first on the idea: can there be a God, or can anything come from nothing? And the idea is, existence is eternal. I think that we agreed on that, right, Wildheart?
Yeah. I'm listening. I'm just making a sandwich, so I'm still listening.
You putting a big chocolate egg in the middle of that sandwich? I saw you munching on that thing today. Ridiculous.
Cheese and onion, actually. Yeah.
Cheese and onion. You broke mother. All right. Anyway, so we were just talking about existence had to always be, because nothing comes from nothing, right?
Right.
All right. So that's a place to start. If there's an eternal anything like existence, that's a good place to start. Can you imagine, or without using the Bible, logically go from that point, from existence? And then kind of, without using the Bible, suggest that there might be a higher power to bring us to where we are today.
Oh, well, sure, we could do that. You just have to look at the impossibility of how, first of all, how could the Earth form in such a way that they call it in a Goldilocks zone, right? So it's not too hot, it's not too cold, it's just the right distance away from the sun, right? So that's a improbable impossibility. We'll just give it a slide on that. We'll say, okay, with that impossibility, that did happen. It's like, okay, cool, let's move on to that. You have water here, which is, all life on Earth needs water to survive, right? So what are the possibilities?
I'm sorry, you can't say it's impossible if it's happened and it has happened. It can't be impossible.
No, I'm saying, like, what are the possibilities of that happening? Like, it's so unlikely that what would be the odds of something like that happening?
So the thing is, you're doing statistics backwards. So that's the problem with these arguments. The chance of us being here currently right now is 100%.
How do you know?
Because we're here right now.
Because we're here.
Oh, okay. I mean,
but it's 100% sure that you're here, right?
But it's just the people that make those arguments, the creators of those arguments, did not understand how to do statistics.
It is highly unlikely, but it's still 100% sure that it happened.
Okay, but we're arguing about that we evolved from evolution, right? Is that?
I don't believe that at all.
All right, I'll respect that, but from my perspective, it just seems like you're trying to to come from that. Maybe you're not, but maybe that's just how I'm viewing it. But I could be mistaken.
No, I don't subscribe to evolution.
No, William's trying to walk you down a path in between me and Wildart and possibly Midnight having objections.
And this is not to be offensive at all, ETT, because you're a really smart guy. I can tell that already. But I don't know if you know who you're in the room with, but like Cerberus can tear down. He's been doing this for a long time, so you got it's a narrow pathway.
In fact, I've gotten so bored I started arguing against atheists.
This is true. And it's a difficult proposition what's put before you, but that's the fun of it, because you have to operate around logical objections, and that just that makes you refine your own beliefs.
Okay, but from your perspective though, because you said that you're a Christian too, right? So if you're asking me how did the Most High came into existence, it's like, well, how would you view that then? If you disagree with my standpoint, how would you view it yourself?
Personally, I believe that the Most High has always existed and has existed very similar, like with an intelligence comparable or above ours at all times. Okay, like just with capacity and potential above ours at all time. But for the sake of what I'm doing with Wildheart, I use the universe, or at least the beginning, the Big Bang, as existence being the foundation, energy being something that Wildheart has agreed is probable, has always existed, and from there something moved. Something, because there's never been an absence of things. There's never been nothing. Something changed. If there's always existence and there's always energy, something had to change. So I compared it to a fetus. There had to be at least a kick or a heartbeat or something that caused such rapid change or such a difference from absence to, or not absence, but chaos to order.
Okay, I understand that.
This is where I think the Bozeman brain argument I had earlier comes in. You can plug in.
Oh yeah, please continue with that. I was listening, but it kind of got derailed.
Well, I was flushing it out then. Right, so if you have existence and you have all the laws that govern existence like we do now, then given the proper amount of time, anything that can possibly exist will just pop into being because of quantum effects. Right, so therefore, if a God is possible, there would be a God given enough time, no matter what. Right, and then if you have a singularity or a tiny universe where or a tiny existence where nothing's changing for an effectively infinite amount of time, you would have to end up with a God statistically.
And if I could tell you something real quick, ETT, because I know this seems like it's shifting off the whole Christian thing, but you have to a little bit, because you can't ask someone who's an atheist or even an agnostic to leap into relying on Scripture. You know what I mean? Because they're automatically no, that came from men. That doesn't matter. So it's not. You have to be able to at least start with the idea of a deity or something, a creative force. You know what I mean? And then because if you can't get there, then everything you say after that's just not going to matter.
But like, could I add on that though? But like, what about going back to one of the things I opened up with? Going by certain of the Old Testament teachings. Like, I'll give another example. The Israelites being taken out of Egypt, into the wilderness, right? There's actually archaeological evidence that exists to prove that this story actually happened, right? Did you know that over in Saudi Arabia, there's a mountain over there that the locals, the government over there, they have it locked away from the public, so you can't publicly view this. But there's
all yours, sir.
Over there. Yeah, there's a mountain over there where the top of the mountain is completely burned, as it says in the story, in Exodus. And not far from there,
Jabal al-Lawz.
Yeah, that one. There's a massive boulder not far from there that was completely split, and they found evidence that water came down from this. And also, if you go to the Nuweiba beach, if you go in the water over there, they found ancient wreckage of ancient Egyptian chariot wheels inside of the Red Sea in that area. And also, there's a massive land bridge underneath the water right there off the Nuweiba beach that, to the right and the left of it, it goes much deeper into the water, but there's a straight path underneath the water that leads directly into, to the other
So
side.
archaeological evidence that the Scriptures are accurate about these historical events. Is that what you're saying? Because I agree.
Right. So the whole point I'm getting at is if I can show you there's archaeological evidence that exists that these stories really happened, doesn't that give credibility to the God that was supposedly behind it?
But wait, features described in a story existing doesn't show that people actually were there, as in the story. Right?
So,
we can write stories about people in real places. That doesn't mean the people were real.
Well, I mean that's
Sherlock Holmes.
That's our perspective.
New York
Spider-Man
exists,
in New York.
Spider-Man didn't.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Spider-Man in New York.
Yeah, if you want to use that kind of thing as an evidence, you've just provided evidence for every fictional character in history, basically.
All right. Well, I'll respect that viewpoint. But here's another thing though, to prove that that the Scriptures must have been, a higher intelligence was involved with the Scriptures. Did you guys know that America's in the Bible? Have you ever heard of that before?
I've heard someone say that before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the fact that that America is written in the Bible, and even if we want to say that the Bible is false, we can roll with that for a second. Let's just say that it was fabricated, and let's just say the 1600s somebody fabricated it. It's like, okay, cool. So back then, if it was fabricated back then, who did they deal with to get these prophecies that they wrote down in the Bible? If it's things that were going to take place in the future, and we see a place in the Scriptures called Mystery Babylon, Revelation 18, that undeniably lines up with the United States. I mean, there's no.
Why did they not call it the United States then? Why did they not call it America?
Well, because it's not meant for the average person to get. That's why it called it mystery. Because a mystery is something that's not
Okay, but
easily
But
understood.
what are the details that makes it specifically America and nothing else?
Oh well, you just got to read the whole chapter. Have you ever read it before? If you don't mind me asking.
I've read bits. I've read enough of the Bible
Okay,
to have read
okay,
all of
you
it,
told me
but that
something,
doesn't
okay.
mean I read it all in from
Okay,
beginning to end.
here's the thing, ETT. You brought it up, so you should at least know a little bit about it. Just try to read the whole chapter.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
But again,
fine.
you don't need to read the whole chapter. Just what details in the chapter makes it
Oh,
very specifically
okay,
America.
I understand. I can give you a couple examples, which I don't have it here with me, so I can't read directly out of it. But anyone.
Are you a
listening-
Seventh-day Adventist?
No, I'm not. Which Seventh-day Adventist they teach it. That's actually the Vatican City, but that's a different subject matter. But anyway,
That's a problem to start with, yeah.
But I want to just mention a couple points, right? It speaks about how the merchants of the earth will wax rich off the abundance of the delicacies, right? So the merchants were made rich off of bringing their merchandise to the city, right? So if we look at from the modern world, what nation is making all these other nations around the world rich off of importing their goods over here and selling them to the population? Obviously, off of that by itself, that points to America.
Right? But wait, that describes every merchant in history and every nation that had merchants.
What's the number one importer in the world? You know,
Importer? Not the United States.
They import goods from other nations.
Right now, I think the largest importer is China.
Now, hold on a second. You have to understand this export. So China's the biggest export.
Export. No. They could be both. Just because you're one doesn't mean you're not the other one.
Well, here's what we have to understand with the export. Export means that they're sending goods to other countries, and import
I know.
means that the other countries are receiving those goods that are being shipped
Yeah,
to them.
and just because you're importing doesn't mean you're not exporting.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that, but I'm saying going off of the statistics, and you can look all this up yourself, that number one importer in the world, meaning what they're taking in all these goods that these other nations are exporting from their countries, the number one is America, and you can look it up. I mean, there's plenty of evidence that exists to back up that where we're from.
Did this prophecy give a time?
No, I'm just. Oh no, now we're getting off track.
Sorry, carry on. Sorry.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, how are you measuring this?
Say that again. How
Measure.
Yeah, measure. How are we
Measure.
measuring? No,
Measure.
I say measure. I'm from Illinois, damn it. It's measure.
Okay, hold on, just to clarify, what do you mean by measure? Are you talking about how do I know it's the number one, or like what do you?
No. How are we determining that it's the largest importer? Because if we're talking about like dollars, right? Then I would say, yeah, sure, maybe America. I'd have to look it up again.
Yeah,
But not by products or volume.
Well, the way you could look up all the statistics online. All you just got to do is type in, well, what is the number one importer of goods around the world? It'll tell you, obviously, if it's the United States, and it'll give you statistics on, the amount of imports and exports of all the countries in the world. But then going off that, we know at this place, all the nations of the world, or they're sending goods over here. They're manufacturing the goods for cheap, and then they send them over here, and they make a profit out of it, right? That's the whole reason of why they send things over here. Like, I'll give an example. Did you know that most of the American flags are actually made in China? Not all of them, but a good percentage of them are actually
Bigly.
Yeah, bigly. See, I'm not sure why you're making it very specifically this, or why it would have to be measured in a specific way.
Well, because you never read it, so you don't know. But if you read it, it actually focuses most of the chapter is dedicated on ships bringing more merchandise into Mystery Babylon. So that's why I'm focusing on this, because it only.
But if you take your reading of the text and go back 200 years, it would describe Britain.
Well, actually, Great Britain's mentioned in the scriptures, though.
You go back further, it's Rome.
Yeah, if you go back further, it's Rome. If you go back far enough, it's probably actually Babylon.
And that's why it's called Mystery Babylon.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that, but it wasn't talking about those back.
How do we know?
Well,
That's why
by-
I think is there a time frame given in the prophecy?
Let me give you an example. We find out that this place, Mystery Babylon, actually was established by another nation. If you go to Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 12, it says, "Your mother, she shall be sore confounded. She that bore you shall be ashamed." Now, why is that important? Because America was founded by Great Britain. We all know the.
No. What is America currently was founded by 3 different nations.
The Britons, they sent the.
And the French and the Spanish.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that, but the first ones over here.
No, they were. Okay, even if we exclude, like, the Japanese and the Vikings, the first ones that came over here were the Spanish.
Yeah, it wasn't British.
ETT, remember I warned you about the scriptures with these guys. Just remember.
All right, well, I'll respect that. Let me bring up another subject matter then. But what about what do you guys think about the concept of hell that Christians teach?
I think that
Which Christians?
Yeah, that's
That's actually a good point because, well, actually, let me say this: most Christians, it doesn't matter if they're Seventh-day Adventist, Catholic, or any other religion, they all teach the same thing. And there's a place called hell that people go there. That
Very false.
And they burn.
ETT, you're wrong.
Very, very false. Yeah.
The Seventh-day Adventists do not teach that whatsoever.
Oh, hold on a second. Hold on. Let me chime in.
Can I ask you a question before you go any further? I just want to.
Hold on. You just said something. I have to mention. Seventh-day Adventists, I know they teach purgatory, but in the future.
No, they don't. They do not teach purgatory. They're foursquare against it and anything else the Catholics came up with.
What do they teach then? You understand?
Annihilation.
Annihilation. What do you mean by annihilation?
It means when you die, there's a resurrection, a judgment, and then if you're sentenced to, I guess what you would call hell, there is a there's nothing. You are burnt down to ash. There's no memory, or not, you have no more consciousness. Excuse me, no more consciousness. You're gone.
Yeah, you cease to be.
So you just basically describe people being judged and put into hell and being burned, right?
Well, actually, it says that the lake of fire rains down from heaven at the end of the 1,000 years.
Actually, no,
it's called the second death. No, it does. I know it well.
Hold on. If you go to Revelation chapter 20, verse 14, it says death and hell was cast into the lake of fire, right? So, so I don't have the position. Wait, what do you say?
I said, yep, that's exactly right.
Yeah, the lake.
Nahum 1:9 says that sin would never enter into our world or into the world again after that point. So again, there wouldn't be a need for death if there's no sin after that.
Can I just bring up universalists as well, who believe that everyone gets into heaven, so there's no hell? They don't believe in hell either.
If you want to preach against hell, that's great. I'm all for it. Go for it.
No, I was just asking you, but what's your position on it? Because I don't hold the mainstream Christian view on that idea.
Well, I'm an open theist, and I don't read anywhere of this eternal torture by an all-loving God. I don't really, I don't read that in there.
Yeah, you're right on that. That's not in there. Because you see, when you deal with the Bible, right?
Can I ask my question? Do you know?
Sure.
Well, first, have you been a Christian for 3 years, or at least heavily involved in prophecy and stuff for 3 years?
I'll answer the question. I would consider myself to be an Israelite now. However, I grew up in the Christian church.
Okay, so again, how long have you been really into your religious beliefs?
8 years.
8 years. Okay, all right. And how long have you been interacting with groups like this, mixed groups of people?
I'll say about 7 years.
Interesting. Well, this will be fun. Okay, cool. Continue.
Well, when you deal with the scriptures, right? When you talk about hell in the Bible, hell just means a condition of suffering that takes place on the earth. And I can give plenty of examples. Like Jonah, right? Jonah 2:2, he cried to the Lord by reason of his affliction out of the belly of hell. Now, if you read it, he was in a fish, right? So he called that hell. So he's talking about his affliction. Like, if you ever heard somebody make a statement and say, "Oh, I'm catching hell," right? They're talking about going through a difficult position in life, right? So when you deal with the Bible, you have to understand that hell is just a condition of suffering that takes place on the physical earth. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 16. So underneath the sun, a place of judgment, that wickedness was there, right? So where judgment takes place is on the physical earth that we stand. And that would be my understanding.
You don't have a problem with someone living inside a big fish?
Repeat that, I couldn't hear you.
You don't have a problem with someone living inside a big fish for, was it 3 days? You don't have a problem with that?
Yep, 3 days.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give an example. There was an account that just took place, I want to say last year, and you can validate this. There was a man who was out scuba diving, and he almost got swallowed up by a whale. The reason why he didn't is because the whale called him on the side, so half of his body was hanging out, the other part was in. So if the whale was over a little bit, he would have got swallowed alive by it.
The key part there was oxygen.
He wasn't, because a whale's throat is only as big as a grapefruit, so he couldn't possibly have been swallowed by a whale.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. It could have been just a bigger fish, because it doesn't really refer to it as a whale. It calls it a
That's true.
fish. So
that's true. But where does the oxygen come from there? Is he in the whale's lungs surviving? What's going on?
Okay, well, wait a second, though. Here's the thing. 95% of the ocean is unexplored, so we don't know what the hell is dwelling down there. So there could be a creature big enough that could swallow a man, where there could be enough oxygen inside of it for him to live a certain amount of time. Because we don't know.
Right, but he'd still have to get to where the oxygen is. I mean, unless he had a bad case of oxygen gas in his stomach. I don't know. That sounds horrific.
I would imagine that fish have acid inside the stomach as well. That might be a problem.
I mean, if someone has the religious belief in the Most High, right, that the Most High can do whatever the hell he wants to do. He can split the
time for Wild Heart's special word.
He can bring down a wall. He can do whatever the hell he wants to, right? So,
which makes your God unfalsifiable, and therefore, I don't believe it.
You're supposed to say special pleading. You love saying special pleading. What happened?
Okay.
And it's special pleading.
Can I ask, who was on here who considered himself a Christian? Was the one with the raccoon, right?
Right, I'm the open theist.
Okay. Do you think that God hates people?
Pardon?
Do you think that God hates people? Like anybody?
I don't know.
Okay, but do you believe in the Bible, or because you said you're a Christian, right?
Yes.
Okay, so since you're a Christian, which the word Christian means a Christ follower, so therefore you would believe in the teachings of Christ, right? And the teachings of the Holy Bible.
The teachings of Christ, I have no problem with whatsoever.
Okay, cool. What about the Old Testament God, right? The Father of Christ. You subscribe to those teachings as well, right?
The teachings?
Or basically, you subscribe to the Old Testament and the New Testament, right? You believe in both.
Well, let me help clear this up, because I see I also believe that Zeus existed, and I believe that Achilles, and I believe these are all real people. By the way, demigods.
Okay, I'm not gonna argue with that. That's fine. But since you agree that you do believe in the scriptures, what do you think about what about just a couple of scriptures to think about? Let's say Romans 9 verse 13. It says, "Jacob I loved, but Esau I hated." Right? Where I'll give another one. Ecclesiastes chapter 12 verse 6. The Lord hates sinners. Right? Just to give you a couple to think about. It says the Most High hates certain people. So you will never hear that brought out by the Christian church or whatnot.
The hell you won't.
Yeah. What about, here's another one? Do you think God makes good and evil?
Does God make good and evil? God creates the condition for evil to exist. Yes.
So he makes the condition for it to exist, but he himself doesn't make the evil himself.
No, he doesn't manufacture the evil.
I think the word is calamity as well in the Bible. Rather than
Sure, calamity.
Which is evil, though. You'd agree with that?
We can just stick with evil if you like. I think, yeah, sure, let's go with evil.
Okay, good. Isaiah 45 verse 7. Right? I, the Lord, create light, create darkness. I make peace and create evil. Like, let me give you another one.
Why? I just agreed with you. I don't know what the problem is.
Oh, okay, good. Well, we're in agreement on that.
We're not in complete agreement because you I think involve intent that God intended for evil, and I don't know that. I mean, if I'm wrong, correct me, but I believe you're getting at intent that God intended to create evil, and I'm assuming that you believe God is all knowing too.
Yeah, I'd agree on that. Oh, well, let me.
No, we're not agreeing. I'm sorry. Let me. You were just agreeing with the concept that I was before that God is all knowing.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, I don't believe that at all. Well, I mean, yeah, no, I don't believe that.
Okay, fine. Here's a good one. What is that? Proverbs, I believe it's 12:16. The Lord made all things for himself. Oh no, excuse me. It's Proverbs chapter 16, verse 4. The Lord made all things for himself, even the wicked for the day of evil. So going by scriptures like that, it seems like the Most High did create some people, to be wicked. Going off that precept.
That's an interesting position. Sure. Continue with where you're going.
Think about that.
Okay, I'll explain it. The way that I look at it is by creating beings to love, he had to give them free choice. With free choice comes either obedience or disobedience. And disobedience is missing the mark, which is considered sin. And so...
Wait, can I ask you something about that? You said missing the mark is considered sin. Can you elaborate on that? Because I heard
that's what Christians say. I was appealing to what the Christians call sin, missing the mark. That's the way it's translated from the Hebrew and the Greek.
Okay, but do you subscribe to that idea that it's missing the mark? What's your perspective on it?
Yeah, you're missing. You're not measuring up. Whatever the qualifications of what God wants to surround himself with.
Well, what do you think about what is that? 1 John chapter 3 verse 4. For sin is the transgression of God's laws.
I don't think we're in disagreement on that. I think obedience and disobedience was presented in the original position that I laid out.
Okay, cool. Okay, good. Okay. Do you believe that? Because some guys say this, right? They say that the law was done away with. Would you agree with that perspective, or do you believe the laws were not done away?
The laws exist with God. They are part of his very nature, which is how the angels, before we were even existed, fell from grace because they violated his law.
Bear with me for a second. Excuse me, I just have to take some water real quick.
Let's go in a second. Well, are you going to be around for a second? Because I got to do my report on the hour.
Yeah, no problem.
I didn't want to get stuck backstage like a dirty freaking raw.
All right. You still have
like a Ronin or a raw.
You still have a couple minutes before you got to go.
Even when I go, I'll come back, but I have to do a report, and then it's an hourly thing for my job.
Oh, okay, just so I know, because when you hop off, I'll have to hop off too, because I got to get out. But just so I know, how many minutes are you available for before you got to go?
To the hour.
Oh, okay. So we got a couple of minutes. But yeah, going back, we'll make it quick. But going back to what I said, did you have the position that the laws are done away with, or do you think they still exist today? That we still got?
They have to exist because, like I said, they are part of God. If God still exists, and when existence still exists, the laws, just like the laws of nature, the laws of logic and reason, all those things are part of, in my belief system, the God.
Okay, that's fine. Well, let's say for an example, do you eat pork, or do you think that's all right to do, or what do you think on that?
I don't really have a position on that. I don't really care.
But do you know the Bible says that you can't eat that?
No, I know that Moses said that. I've read the Ten Commandments. Hold on, I see where you're going. I've read the Ten Commandments, and I realized that they were kept in separate compartments from the civil law, and one is claimed to be written with God's own finger, the other by Moses. So I don't pay any attention to Moses' law unless it's more of a suggestion. As far as the Ten Commandments, I think those are pretty important.
But I mean, the Most High gave Moses all of the.
That's an assumption.
Well, how could you prove that that's not true, though?
How can you prove that he gave him any of those things? You're talking about proof now.
Well, I'd say that all of the laws, which is 613, were given down from the Most High. Because we read, I'll give an example. I was just reading this yesterday. You go to Exodus 20th chapter when it gets.
Are they of equal importance?
Oh, okay. Hold on. Just let me finish. When you go to Exodus 20, you read about how God gave him the Ten Commandments, but then he elaborates on other statutes and commandments that Moses is supposed to judge the people of. So there we get the rest of the law started from verse.
Are those laws differentiated from the Ten Commandments?
No.
So then why don't we have the Ten Commandments just added on to those laws with the same importance? Why is there a difference? Why are they not considered just the same?
Well, he gave the Ten Commandments are basically like a little summary.
Did God get tired while he was writing after 10? He was like, Moses, you write the rest. My finger hurts. Come on, man.
No. Hold on a second. He gave them those are like some of the main statutes, but it doesn't mean other statutes don't exist. He gave them those to start off with.
So wait, is there a difference? That's what I said. Is there a difference between the Ten Commandments and the other 600 and whatever?
No. If you disobey the 10, it's sin. If you disobey the others, it's sin.
Okay, so you don't see. All right, that's cool. I see your position. I find it empty, but keep going.
Oh, okay, real quick. You agree in the Ten Commandments it says thou shalt not, right? You'll see why I'm saying this, but real quick, you agree it says thou shalt not. Say for example, murder, right?
Sure.
Okay, so in Leviticus 11, it says, "These are the creatures that ye shall not eat." So the Most High is saying, "These are the things that ye shall not do."
No,
So
no. That's another. Okay, go ahead. You're just making assumption after assumption after assumption.
No, no. Okay, so wait a second. So it is okay to eat pork today if you want, right?
Are you saying that because the Ten Commandments use the phrase "shall not" and it shows up in the civil law, that despite the common use of grammar, this indicates somehow that this came from the mouth of God, just because "shall not" is in it? Come on, man.
Well, it's saying that you shall not do these things. Same way we see it in the Ten Commandments, right? So we say.
I think you can find that in Shakespeare as well.
Yeah, but that's not part of the scriptures, so that wouldn't count.
Well, I'm also suggesting that we're talking about two different sets of laws, and you ignore that.
Oh, okay. Just so I have an answer, you'll see why I'm saying this. But just so I know, it is okay. It's not a sin today to eat, say, rabbit or pork or crawfish, shrimp and stuff like that. That's not a sin to do today. I just want to guess or no on that.
No, I don't think it's a sin.
Okay, cool. I'll respect that answer. But what do you think about Isaiah chapter 66 and verse 17? It says, actually, I'll start at verse 15. It says, "The Lord will come with his chariots like a whirlwind to render his anger and his fury with flames of fire." And then if you read on, it says, "They that eat the mouse and the swine, they will be consumed together," says the Lord. So he's saying that these people who eat those things they're basically going to be killed when Christ returns for his second coming.
That sounds exactly like the finger that wrote the Ten Commandments, doesn't it?
But wait a second, though. Why is he killing them for eating the mouse and the swine if that wasn't in his Ten Commandments?
Because they're basically humans. Their tissue is so similar to our own that we can grow stuff like human parts on them.
But he's saying he's going to kill the people who eat those particular meat stuff. I thought you said it wasn't.
When it says all consumed together, to me that means they should be consumed together. They should be ate together.
No, well, brother, you haven't read the text, so you don't know the.
No, just from what you said.
What is it? Isaiah again?
Isaiah chapter 66, verse 15 to verse 17.
Right, I'll look it up.
Right, we only got a couple minutes left, so we won't go for too much longer then. But yeah,
I still don't know why you put more importance or equal importance on the civil law as you would the moral law. That seems.
I mean,
like
it's
a common. Huh?
Okay, go ahead.
I'm just saying, it seems like a common understanding in the Bible that the Ten Commandments were the moral law; they were kept inside the ark, and the civil law was kept on the pocket on the outside of the ark, and it was added to, and it was developed over a period of time.
I'll respect that viewpoint, but I would disagree with that. I'd say they were all inspired by the Most High, but the Ten Commandments.
So why the difference in deference?
I don't know what you're saying by there being a difference, because we find out that, because if you break the other laws, as I just gave an example in Isaiah 66, those rules right there, that's not in the Ten Commandments, but we see people are still being killed for doing those things. Why? Because those
who's killing people for eating mice or whatever?
It says that Christ is going to do that.
Yeah, but I don't see that happening. I find that if you're in a place where you're eating mice, chances are you're starving, and if you think that a God of love wants to watch people starve rather than eat a convenient mouse, you know what I mean? I don't know where you're going with it. I don't know what picture you're painting.
But the Bible says that God's going to send a famine.
He's gonna. Well, I mean, we're all gonna die, right?
Yeah, but he himself is deliberately going to send famine. The Bible tells you, Revelation 18. I believe that's verse 4. I could be mistaken.
It looks like he's using Joe Biden to bring it.
Does it actually say God sends it, or that it will just come?
No, it says that. Well, first of all, God's the one who does everything. I'll give you an example. Amos chapter 3, verse 6. If there's evil in the city, was not the Lord the one who done it? Right. So the Most High is in control of all things that take place in the world. Like, I'll give you an example with the war in Ukraine right now. It was God who put it into their minds to go through with that invasion. Proverbs chapter 21, verse 1. The heart of the king is in the hands of the Lord, and as the rivers of water, he turns it whatsoever he will. Right. So the Most High has his hand pulling the strings behind the scenes, so to speak, according to the scripture.
I'm sorry, I was talking to someone. I heard what you said, but why would it be true a couple thousand years ago mean it's true whenever in the future from now?
Well, because the Bible has future prophecies. As a matter of fact, we see that at least right now. Most of them.
Yeah, they're future prophecies. That doesn't mean that what was true 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,000 years ago is also currently true.
Well, those were prophecies about what's going to take place in the future. Also, let me say this. If you go to Hebrews chapter 13, verse 8, it says, I, the Lord, was the same yesterday, today, and forever. Right? So the Most High doesn't change. So if he says he's going to do something, he's going to go through with it because he's not going to change his mind.
Yeah, but he doesn't have to change, though, to be as the way he would always be in the future to us. Right? To us, it could seem like he's changing, even though he's staying the same. Like, he's not bound by our time.
Can I ask you something real quick for all three of you on here? Have you guys ever read the Bible, like front to back before? Have you guys ever read?
No. I've probably read every passage though a couple times.
I probably read
so much.
Yeah, but not front to back, no.
Okay, well, I have a couple times, right? Not that means nothing, but I know a couple verses that people probably don't know about. Let's move on to about, say, Christ a little bit. Well, what do you guys think about Christ? Well, what if I told you that from my research that I've done, have you guys ever heard the idea that Christ could be black?
Don't tell me you're a black Hebrew Israelite.
No, I didn't say that. I was just saying that there's evidence out there that exists that could prove that. I didn't say that I was anything.
Well, I would say based on where he is, where he supposedly was born, and where his parents are from, he could actually be any race. Caucasians, Middle Easterns, and Africans and Asians were all
But
present.
here's the thing though. But we know that Christ was actually from the tribe of Judah, right? He was a Judite. If you go to what is that? I want to say Hebrews chapter 7, verse 14. It says it's evident that our Lord sprang out of the tribe of Judah, right? So from my understanding, I'd say that the Judites are the blacks over here in America because there's certain prophecies that exist that, like, I'll give an example. There's a prophecy if you go to Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68. There's a prophecy there that the Israelites they would be taken into Egypt again with ships, right? Now one will say, oh, it says Egypt there. But here's the thing, though. We'd find out later on in the Bible there's a place that is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt, right? Revelation chapter 11, verse 8. It says that their dead bodies shall lie in the street of that great city, which is spiritually Sodom and Egypt, right? So there's a place that exists in the future from that time that would be called Egypt. So I would say that's talking about the transatlantic slave trade from the 1600s. But if you don't agree, I'm open to see what
How many bloody black people do you get? How many bloody black people do you get?
What does that mean? How many black people do you get?
Bloody. It doesn't describe Jesus as bloody, like red faced.
Here's the thing, though. If you go to, I'll give an example. If you go to Revelation chapter 1, verse 14, start at verse 13 on down, but it tells you that his feet were like brass that had been burned in a furnace, right? So his feet were like burned brass. So it's a darker brown color, but would be the color of Christ. At least from what I've seen.
Yeah, but that's.
Oh, you're one of those.
Okay, but wait a second though. That's it's symbolism. It's showing his feet isn't made of clay.
But he's given a depiction when he saw Christ appear to him. John's given he's describing what Christ appeared to him.
So bronze to you looks black?
But wait, what I'm getting at is it's a euphemism that no one knew that very few people knew the meaning to, and was translated literally.
Well, if it's not literal though, from your understanding, what does it mean?
It just means his feet are not. I can't actually say. I'm not allowed to say.
Okay.
Did you say it was burned bronze, right?
Yeah, it was.
So like brass.
Yeah, burned brass.
Like no, burned, but like smelted brass or smelted bronze, which is like brass. So shiny.
Right.
Yeah.
Shiny.
Let me bring this up then. Let me bring this up. What is your take on the subject matter of reincarnation? Have you guys ever heard of that?
What? Reincarnation?
Yeah, wait. Before we jump there, I just want to say that the blacks that are in America are Central and West African. They're not East African. The ones that would have been mixing in the Middle East.
What's north? You mean north?
No, North Africa towards the Middle Eastern.
That's Arabic.
Well, no, because you have the Kushites that are mentioned, and they're from Africa. So the Kushites.
That was Central. That was like the Sudan.
Yeah, we're not arguing about that. That's true.
No, that was the Kushites come from Africa.
Yeah, no, that is Africa. That is Africa. The Sudan is Africa. Right. Yeah, but it's lower down. It's not up near the Egyptian area. Egypt is North Africa, and that's Mediterranean. And then when you get past, you get into Central Africa and South Africa, it's the Kushites.
Sorry. When you said Sudan, I was thinking of Saudi Arabia. My brain put those two like across from each other.
The black people in America are Congolese and west of that.
Well, I only have a couple more minutes though, so can we just get to a handful more topics before I gotta jump off though?
But can I bring up one topic? It's just a question.
Yep.
Have you submitted and given free will tribute to the goddess this year?
To the goddess?
Yeah, DC.
I don't know what you mean by that.
I paid my
Columbia?
taxes.
The goddess Columbia? No. Yes, he was. God got it.
You're asking if I pay my taxes?
Yeah, you commit blasphemy every time you pay your taxes. By the way, just so you know.
Well, I'll say this though. In the Bible, it doesn't say that you have to pay your taxes. So that's not an accurate.
Oh yeah, no, definitely not.
Hold up,
But
I don't
what
think
I'm
it's
saying
blasphemy.
is-
You have to render unto Caesar what is Caesar's.
But wait a second though. But you're talking about Matthew. What is that? Chapter 22, verse 17 on down. The people asked him. Our masters are. Here's the thing. When you read it, they said, "Is it lawful for us to give tribute?" They didn't say they're telling us that we got to give them money or they hurt us. That's not what they said. So Christ said, "Oh yeah, hey, I see whose face is on the coin. Give him the coin." Now, if he brought the coin to Christ, and let's say it was a Chuck E. Cheese token, he would be like, "Oh yeah, go give the mouse his thing, his thing." You know what I'm saying?
In all of those, you're paying a human being. You're giving tribute to a human being. Currently, you're giving tribute to a goddess. Did God say you're allowed to worship gods by giving them offerings?
Well, I'll say this. I'm unemployed at the moment, so I'm not paying taxes on nothing. I'm only 19, so I haven't had to do any of that at this moment.
Just think about that. I'm not saying don't pay your taxes, but just be aware.
Right. But before I go off, though, could we get back to that? Well, what do you guys think about reincarnation?
It depends on what kind.
Let me give an example. You guys know about John the Baptist, right?
Yeah, I know John the Baptist.
Okay. Did you know that he was Elijah himself? Like in reincarnation.
Was he also a colored fella?
Who said that?
Well, said that.
But if you go to
Cocoon.
what is that? Matthew. If you go, what is that? If you go to
Oh, I will.
Matthew chapter 17, verse 10. Christ says that Elijah was, John the Baptist was Elijah himself, right? So he was in reincarnation. And that's just one example I could give over other reincarnations.
What about necessarily what
Elias?
it means.
Yeah. What about Elias?
What do you ask about?
Well, you know about Elias, right?
Yeah, but what's your question about?
Well, what about him?
You'd have to give me the.
You know the story pertaining to around Elias, right?
Yeah, he was
And
taken
Elijah.
up, right?
Elijah and Elias, yeah.
Yeah. That's they were just taken away.
No, they weren't. Okay, for one, Elijah was dying, right? And
Right.
Elias asked Elijah, "Hey, can you give me a portion of your spirit?" And then he asked, "Oh, this is a typical thing. So if you see me going up and ascending to the Lord, then you shall know." And that's when Elias received the portion of Elijah's spirit. Now, again, you could say that that's reincarnation in some sense, but I think it's mostly partaking the same thing, that John the Baptist had the spirit of
mantle.
Elijah, not actually reincarnated as.
Yeah, it's called his mantle, right, Tog?
Right. Yeah,
He picked up his mantle.
Right.
But could somebody get the precept just so we could read it? I don't have it here with me, but if you go to Matthew 17, verse 10, Christ said, "This is Elijah." So he wasn't in the spirit of him. He said it.
If you can accept it.
Yeah, if you could, because some people would hear it, it would not believe it. But he's like, yeah, if you can accept it, this is what it is.
I still don't see that as reincarnation because
Okay,
it's talking
yeah.
about picked up the mantle.
Okay, hold on. Let me give you another example.
What was that Matthew's
This
again?
is a very
Sorry.
good- This is a really good
Oh,
one.
you got it.
Why the brother's pulling that up there on Matthew 17, verse 10. Let's just get this one real quick. This is a good one. You agree that John the Revelator died on the island of Patmos, right?
I'm sorry, John the Revelator? Is that what you said?
Yeah, he died on the island of Patmos, right? You agree with that?
He was in prison there.
Yeah, so he eventually died there, right?
I don't know that that's true. I believe that he was in prison there. He went by
Yeah.
Theophilus at the time.
Magic mushrooms. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Well, history is he was condemned there, but then eventually he passed away there. That's where he died, right? So here's the reason why that's important, because it tells you in you go to Revelation chapter 10 and verse 11. The angel told him, "You're going to have to go again and teach before many other peoples, kings, and nations and tongues." So how would he go ahead and teach before many kings and nations again if he died on that?
We're
island?
still reading his testament.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, but he said,
Revelations.
but he said that he himself was going to have to go. I mean, we can get the precept. The angel told John that he himself was going to have to go and teach before many kings and nations again.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably.
Where does that go to reincarnation?
Because
Doesn't-
how could he do that unless he was reincarnated? 'Cause he
Oh,
died.
resurrection.
The same way through Christ, and that's through Christ. And again, it's
Well,
through the word of Christ.
Wait. So he was resurrected again. That's what you're saying.
Will be.
Christ, yeah.
Will be.
Christ.
We all will.
Oh, that's a good topic. What about the rapture? I got to hop out in a couple minutes, but that's a good one. What about the rapture? What do you guys?
What about it?
Well, I'm just asking you from your perspective. You guys believe that's post-tribulation or pre-tribulation?
Post?
Oh, I have no idea.
Post means after, and pre means before.
I know what the terms mean.
So you think it's post, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. We would agree on that. But here's where it gets interesting. Is the Bible speaks about God's chariots, right? What do you think that is? Chariots of God.
Well, I don't know.
What if I told you that they're actually UFO?
That would be fine.
Have you ever heard of that idea before?
UFOs are the Watchers.
Yeah, you get that from Enoch, right?
Yes.
But is there anywhere else in the Bible other than Enoch? Could
Oh, not in the Bible. Not in the Bible, but in
I
the other
think-
cultures and religions around the world. Yeah.
I think when it speaks of chariots and God's wrath and the things along that, it's speaking of the same thing, which would be the smoking furnace from the Old Testament, which would be God's lake of fire, essentially.
Well, even Aleister Crowley called it that, and he was a demonologist. So.
I'm not one to incline to aliens.
Well, here's the thing. UFOs, this is my understanding of it, but what they call UFOs, right, which stands for unidentifiable flying object, I would say those are actually the chariots of God. As a matter of fact, you can check my page on this. If you know about the
I
white
guess that's
orb,
fair.
if you know about the orbs, I've actually captured one on tape that was flying right behind me while I was teaching on the highways. And you can find it. You can look and validate it. And if you go to these,
You can present it.
No,
You can present it here right now.
I mean, you can find it on my page. But I can't share my screen because I'm not on a computer or none of that. But
Oh, gotcha.
let me say this real quick. These Hebrew Israelite camps, right? You know about those. Here's the interesting thing. If you look at like GMS, sometimes over the camps that they hold, you'll see these white orbs flying around in the sky, right? Those are the chariots of God, what people call UFOs that we see. So you got to wonder, it's like, wait a second, why are these UFOs showing up around all of these religious people, that are holding they call it camp, right? When they go out and teach on the street. Why are these showing up so frequently? And it's not just a one or two occurrence out of the blue. No, this happens year in, year out, man. You can look into this. There's plenty of videos of this that exist, proving that these things are flying over the camp sometimes, man. They're called on videos, on live streams. They're very interesting. Go ahead.
I don't know if there was a question there, was there?
Oh, okay, but like the one brother asked about the Watchers, right? So I was just saying, because I don't subscribe to the Book of Enoch. I subscribe to which I can get into that next, but I don't subscribe to Enoch. I only subscribe to the 80 books of the Bible.
Right.
Do you subscribe to all 80 books?
What does that mean to subscribe?
Well, in other words, do you believe in them?
a roundabout way, sure.
Okay, let me say that again. You believe in all 80 books.
In a roundabout way, sure.
I don't think you called that. You know the Bible only has 66 books, right?
And there's a lot of approprial and
Well,
extra
it
biblical
depends.
stuff
Yeah,
out
it
there.
depends on if you're Catholic and not. If you
Okay.
go by Catholic
Do you
canon.
believe? Excuse the background noise. Do you believe in the Apocrypha? Have you heard of that before?
Yeah, I just mentioned it.
Okay, so you do agree that it's canonical, right?
No.
You don't? Could you give
No.
me some reasons on that?
Well, tell me what canonical means.
Okay, well, it means inspired. Did you know that Jesus himself?
No, wait.
I forget that you're only 19. You're young. I'm like, why is this all these questions?
Excuse me. It's some believe it's not inspired. Others do believe that it is inspired, right? And it's definitely a debate. But the one brother on here said that it's not inspired. So I just wanted to ask, did he know that Jesus himself directly quoted out of the Apocrypha?
Who said it wasn't inspired?
Well, I was asking, did you believe that it was inspired and basically that is part of the Bible?
Well,
You asked me if I subscribe to it, and I said in a roundabout way.
I'll ask Andy, do you believe in it? Just a yes or no?
That's a case-by-case situation, my friend.
Okay. Well, I'll say this. The Apocrypha, the 1611 King James Version Apocrypha has, I want to say, 14 books now, I believe. If you ever looked at it, right, it doesn't have Jasher or Enoch. Those are not included in it. Those are separate. But I'm talking about the 14 books that are mentioned inside
The ones that you choose to include in your belief system, yeah.
Okay, so you do agree that those are inspired.
How did you get that from what I said?
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't agree with that.
Excuse me. Let me clarify, because now I'm getting confused. I'll just ask one time so I understand. Do you accept the Apocrypha books, the 14 books in the 1611 Apocrypha? Are they inspired by God, or should we not follow them because they're not inspired?
Again, a case-by-case basis, and it depends on what you mean follow them.
Okay. So just like with, say, the Old Testament books, right? We believe that those are inspired by God, so we study them and believe in them, right? So I'm asking, do you do the same with the Apocrypha?
I believe that they were written by men cataloging what their experiences were in the best way that they can interpret it. That's what I believe.
So what makes that different from the Old Testament? You're saying the Old Testament.
I'm referring to the Old Testament.
Okay, so the Old Testament, was it inspired by God or no?
Certainly, it seems to be inspired by acts of God.
Okay, good. So is the Apocrypha inspired by acts of God?
I would say that's what the writers believed.
But you're saying they're wrong on that.
I didn't say they were wrong. Why you keep putting things in there?
I'm just asking because you have to understand. You said
Loaded
that's what they
questions.
believe.
You have to understand that you're asking about 14 different books by different authors, all at the same time as though they're one thing, and then including the Old Testament in it as a comparison.
Well, I'm just like, say for an example, you have the New Testament, which is a collection of books, right? So I'm talking about the Apocrypha as a whole, which is a collection of books, right?
Okay, wait. Okay, but
That doesn't. Yeah.
if you're going with the 66 books of the Protestant Bible, right? There are way more than 14 books that are Apocrypha.
Yeah, I know that there's other books out there, but in the 1611 Apocrypha, there's 14 books in that. There's other books that people differ whether they're inspired or not, such as Enoch, Jasher, other books like that are not included in the Apocrypha.
Well, I mean, also including like 80% of the Jewish religion. All
Right.
those texts.
Let me just jump to the conclusion real quick. Did you guys know that Jesus Christ himself directly quoted out of the Apocrypha? I can show you the verse on it.
Well, for most of the
Are you quoting from the Apocrypha?
The issue with that is like you get books like Enoch and Jasher, which are a Jewish folktale, and Jesus warns against going into Jewish folktale to look for answers.
The Talmud,
Right.
especially.
Right. If you go to which I can't, I don't have it here. I can't bring it up, but I can quote it. If you go to the book of Matthew, chapter 23, verse 37, Christ makes a quotation that we find in the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 1, verse 30. It's literally the exact same quote that he's saying there, and the Apocrypha was written before the New Testament. So we have to conclude that Christ was making that quote because he read the Apocrypha because it was written before.
Should I ask you a question, E.T.?
No, I'm just
You have to.
putting a fact down.
No, but as a similar kind of claim, Jesus said the golden rule was to treat others as you wanted to be treated, and as Wildheart has pointed out before, in fact, that is like from the Code of Hammurabi.
But there's a lot of polemics in the Bible that goes pertaining to Marduk, Baal, and all the other Ra. Throughout the Bible, there's a lot of polemics to that, and there's polemics from the other religions talking about Yahweh too. They all talk about it if you look into all the mixed culture. So that's just nothing more than polemics when it's mentioning Cloud Rider for Baal Hadad and sea serpents and for Marmaduke and things of that nature. It's just subversions and polemics throughout. So, our God is the Most High God.
Good way to say that.
All right, I understand that, but I can show you even Apostle Paul makes a quote to a story that you read in the book of 2nd Maccabees, right? If you go to what is that? If you go to the book of
Maccabees
Hebrews,
is Catholic
chapter,
canon, so yeah, that would be accurate.
well, the book of 1st and 2nd Maccabees is included inside of the Apocrypha. So I mean, if a group wants to believe in it or not, that's their choice. But it's in the Apocrypha, right? So I'm just saying that a writer in the Bible made a quote to the men that you read about in the book of 2nd Maccabees, the 7th chapter, right? If you read it, it's a story of basically, just to give a little breakdown, it's like 7 brothers and their mother. They were tortured by the king because they refused to follow his commandment because he commanded them to eat swine's flesh, but they refused to do so. So they got tortured to death. because they didn't follow the king's commandment. That's what the story says. So Paul makes a reference to these 7 brothers and their mother in the book of Hebrews chapter 11 and verse, I want to say it's verse 35 to 37, I believe. But it just shows that even Christ himself and Apostle Paul, and there are people in the New Testament that quote the Apocrypha, right? The same thing that we find the writers in the New Testament quoting the Old Testament. We know, okay, well, yeah, they were inspired by it. So we got to conclude off of those couple points given that the writers of the New Testament, they also must have read the Apocrypha and were inspired
You like
by
Jude
it.
being almost a copy of Enoch.
Yeah, I don't subscribe to those books.
But Jude did.
Say that again.
Jude in the New Testament quotes the book of Enoch for a good portion of his book there.
Yeah,
So he subscribed to it, and the book of Enoch was found with the what were they called, the Dead Sea Scrolls? Actually, 2 copies of it, missing only the book of Esther. But not a lot of that apocryphal stuff, other apocryphal stuff that you're mentioning, was not found with this, even though it predates it by your reckoning.
Right. I understand that. I don't know the whole history behind it, but since I've sat down and read it, I can easily understand that we're certainly inspired, by reading the Bible. Because I'll give you an example. What's the testimony of Christ? You'll see why I'm saying it.
No, just get to where you're going, man.
Okay, well, the testimony of Christ, according to Revelation chapter 19, verse 10, it says the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. So if I go to the Apocrypha, there's a ton of prophecy that it speaks about that clearly lines up with what I also read.
This was yours, sir.
Right? So just going like that. And you have to, in order to understand the Bible, you have to go precept here a little and there a little, according to Isaiah chapter 28, verse 10. Right? So by doing that, we can conclude the Apocrypha is inspired off of those certain things. So you don't need to know the history behind all of it. But by reading it, you can validate if it is or is not inspired.
Well, it wouldn't matter if it was inspired or not, because even the Bible says wisdom is found where wisdom is found.
Anyways.
So even if you find something, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. I just, you had to pause there.
Essentially, that's it, yeah.
I was asking, what do you mean by inspired? I've been keeping about shit through this whole conversation.
Wait, you're asking me that?
Yeah.
Okay, what I mean by inspired, I mean that the Most High was the one who inspired the writing of the text.
Yeah. What does inspired mean in that sentence?
Well, let's see. Well, how could we define it? Basically, it's made by the inspiration of the Most High.
But you're describing inspiration by saying what does inspiration mean?
Okay, I'll give you an example. Basically, so he told them what to write down, or had an angel appear to them, or he put it into their mind what he wanted them to write down, because Most High has the power to do that going off a certain scripture.
Okay, so it's possible that that's true for every book that's not in the Bible that's vaguely Christian.
No.
Yeah, totally is.
Because, well, first of all, the Most High God deceives people. Do you agree with that?
I don't think Yahweh exists.
I think there's something akin to that with the Phantom Toll booth, sir. I'm not too sure.
With the Christian brother here, did you agree that God deceives people?
Yeah, do you believe he's the sower of confusion, William?
No, but that verse you're quoting is talking about confusion in the churches if you read the entire context of it.
Yeah, I don't know why that wouldn't apply, but okay.
Okay, but here's the thing. What do you think about Job chapter 12? Job chapter 12, verse 16. With him is strength and wisdom. The deceived and the deceiver are his. I'll give another one. The book of 2 Thessalonians.
They exist. Everything is his.
Hold on. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 11. The Lord shall send them a strong delusion that they should believe the lie, right? So by going off of those, I can give another one. We go to, what is that, First Kings?
What if you're demonstrating that?
Wait, what's that? Because you're going multiple examples, and there's different things to say about each of these examples.
Well,
Right, so the first one William pointed out, it just means they more or less belong to the Lord, like those two groups of people. Right, the second one, a delusion isn't a deception. It means you're vulnerable to deception.
Okay, well, here's the thing, though. If you go to, which is actually what I was about to bring out, First Kings chapter 22, verse 19. If you read on down, it's an example of spirits on the Most High's left-hand side, on the right-hand side, that went to the Lord. And he was trying to see, well, who's going to go and persuade Ahab, the king? And the demons came up and said, I'll go and I'll be a lying spirit, to him. And the Most High was like, oh, yeah, okay, well, I give you the permission. Go and be a deceiving spirit, right? Go and be a deceiver. And
Okay, so God didn't deceive in that either.
Well, the Most High authorizes the deception, according to
Well, he allowed it.
No, the deception, the Most High, I'll give an example. Do you think Satan goes around and does whatever he wants?
I mean, like the adversary. Which adversary?
Well, let's say, for an example, the spiritual demon Satan that we see in the Bible.
I don't think it's actually. I don't see that character in the Bible. I think it's something Christians read into it.
So you don't. Okay, well, what about Job chapter 2? We see a conversation between the Most High and a demon named Satan, right? The spiritual demon.
Yeah, a demon called my adversary. Yeah.
So you're saying that's not in there?
Like as in like it's a unique being. No, I don't think that's in there.
Hasatan versus Asatan.
All right. Well, we'll disagree on that then. But I brought that point up to show that Satan and demons are even under the authority of the Most High. And that's evident in the Bible, because Christians come on and say that. That Satan.
Yeah, and I think the most powerful Satan is Jesus.
And you're welcome to believe that.
Yeah, I think he's Lucifer.
That's essentially true.
He's obviously Lucifer.
Oh, are you talking about Isaiah 14, right?
Well, I'm talking about what Christ means in Latin. It means bright and shining one, or morning star, which is a shining bright one.
You know what you're talking about. I agree on that.
Well, one who brings knowledge and enlightenment.
Yeah, so Christ is that.
Oh, we're going 33rd.
Yeah, 33rd.
But here's the thing, though, because guys go to Isaiah the 14th chapter. Are you familiar with that?
Is that the one that's like, oh, Lucifer, son of the morning?
Lucifer.
Yeah.
Who do you
You
think?
fall from heaven to earth. I forget how it's phrased exactly.
Well, who do you think that's talking about?
Well, I know a lot of Christians say it's like the king of Babylon.
Obama.
Yeah, some people say it's Obama.
Obama, yeah.
Wait. So do you agree with the Christian perspective that that's what that means?
I see no evidence that it's either that as it's translated there or what it was translated from.
Okay, well, I'll give the answer. If you go, I believe it's verse 4 in Isaiah chapter 14. It tells you that it's talking about king of Babylon. So I would agree with them, and you will now. I'd agree. That's
No, you can't compare. Two people can have the title. Right? Just because there's another Lucifer doesn't mean it's this Lucifer.
I'm not disagreeing with that, not at all.
So the king of Babylon was in heaven and then fell to earth. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's not literal, because when you deal with the Bible,
Oh, now it's not literal.
Wait a second. Let me show you something. Can somebody pull me up the book of Amos, chapter bear with me for a second. I believe it's Amos chapter 9. I start at verse 2.
Easy, Cerberus. You're too anxious.
I got my cat face on.
Give me a second.
Yeah, I figured Todd was doing it because he's usually on the ball for getting the quotes.
It's up there.
Yeah. The reason I'm going here is I'm going to show you that in the Bible, when it speaks about heaven, it's not always like a literal place that where the Most High dwells. It depends on the context. Like Isaiah 14 is talking about a position of rulership, and I'm going to show you that here. That we'll read it and then I'll explain what I mean.
Wait, real quick. So you're going to make an argument that being a ruler is heaven.
Just hear this out, and then you'll understand what I'm getting.
No, real quick, is that the argument?
Yeah, sir. Just hear him out, man. Come on.
Well, what I'm saying is,
I think that's the argument you're going to make, and that seems ridiculous.
Hold on.
You're just showing off, sir.
Okay, hold on. It depends on the context that the word is used. Is there a heaven where the Most High is? Yes. But in the Bible, heaven can also mean different things depending on the context that it's used. And let me give you an example. That's what I'm trying to do by going to this verse here. So let's just.
Yeah. And I'm asking you, is when you go through this verse, are you going to try to make the argument with this verse that being a ruler is heaven?
Oh, that's hilarious. Sorry,
no, I'm not going to do that. You got the scripture for me? Could you read it for me? Amos chapter 9, verse 2 to say verse 5. I have a hard time seeing it on my screen.
Give me a second. I'll put on my best reading voice for the American public. Not for you, Wildheart. You have to pay $2.50. All right. I'm just playing. If they dig into Sheol, from there shall my hand take them. If they climb up to heaven, from there I will bring them down. If they hide themselves on top of Carmel, from there I will search them out and take them. And if they hide from my sight at the bottom of the sea, there I command the serpent, and it shall bite them. AKA Behemoth.
Cool. You can stop there. But the point I wanted to get is go up to the first verse that I got there. Just read that one for me real quick about the heaven and Sheol.
If they dig into Sheol, from there my hand shall take them. If they climb up to heaven, from there I will bring them down.
Okay, yeah, that's what I wanted. So what this is talking about is, let's deal with climbing up to heaven. Let's talk about how they have technology. Just hear it out, man.
But real quick, I just want to point out that this isn't describing any particular place as heaven.
Okay, let me just finish this and we can have a discussion. What it's saying is, right, though they climb up to heaven, meaning what? They have technology that they have that can take them high into the atmosphere, right? So that's one heaven in the Bible. Then also it says, though they dig into hell. It says hell in the King James. So though they dig into hell, I shall,
the grave. It's the grave.
Yeah, but the grave is also hell in the Bible, depending on what you read. So though they dig into hell.
Wait,
hold on. Let me finish, man. So they dig into hell, though they climb up to heaven, it'll bring them down, right? So what he's saying is they can't hide from me wherever they go, but I go here to show you that heaven in the Bible does not always mean the place where the Most High dwells. It just depends on the context.
Yeah, I'm not saying it has to be where the Most High dwells.
Or it just could be saying there's nowhere to hide, I'll still bring you down.
Yeah, this might just be a metaphor about you can't hide from me. But another thing is, the Bible does not say the atmosphere is a heaven. Another thing is, the king of Babylon wasn't flying in the atmosphere to fall.
Okay, but what does this mean by though they climb up to heaven? What does that mean from your understanding?
I mean, if they climb up to heaven?
It says though they climb up to heaven.
I'm reading if they climb up to heaven.
Well, you're not trying to read out of the King James, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But
let's go with though. Let's go with though.
Why no, now we go with the Geneva. Now we go with Geneva, because screw you guys. That's my favorite anyway, so. Dealer's house. Though they dig through into hell, then shall my hand take them. Though they climb up to heaven, then I will bring them down.
Right. What does it mean, though they climb up to heaven? And let's not skip over. It says, though they dig into hell, then shall my hand take them. So what does this mean here? Though they dig into hell, though they climb up to heaven.
What makes you think they're talking about people?
Well, who else could this be talking about?
Well, earlier we were talking about Lucifer, right?
Yeah, but Lucifer was the king of Babylon if you read verse 4.
Well, I was suggesting the way it reads that it could also be talking about the Nephilim.
Yeah,
I hate to say it, Babylon. The king of Babylon was not in the sky or in heaven at any point.
Yeah, but it's like a poetic. The Bible is poetic. So
okay, but why are you saying?
Oh, you messed up, man.
That's poetic. That's poetic. But this, what you're trying to make me read here, isn't just a metaphor.
Well, it depends on what you read in the Bible. Like,
it depends on how you read the Bible mostly.
I love this part, verse 7. Are you not as the Ethiopians unto me, O children of Israel? Ethiopians mean the blacks.
Yeah.
All right. Well, wait a second. So from your understanding, what does it mean though they dig into hell? That's what I'm inquiring. That's what I want to inquire. What does that mean?
I I think it's an Old English word that means the exact same thing as if.
Yeah, but what is the thing that they're digging into?
It doesn't. The point is, it doesn't matter where you go. I'll bring you down. There's nothing you can do to defeat me or go against what I'm doing. No matter, even if you could get to heaven, even though you show up at the door, I'll bring you down.
See,
Okay,
you're getting pretty far away from the topic, right? I'm pointing out that the king of Babylon was never in heaven to fall to earth.
Right, I'm totally agreeing.
Even if we read this the way you wanted it to be read, it still wouldn't say that the king of Babylon was in heaven to fall to earth.
Well, as I said, I totally agree with your standpoint. This is not literal heaven in the sky, not literal hell. It's talking about wherever you go, I'm gonna get you.
Sorry.
I totally agree with that. But all I'm showing is this. It uses the word heaven and hell, right? But we agree this is not talking about where the Most High Himself dwells.
Yeah,
right?
I'm familiar with Christians thinking there's multiple layers or different heavens. Yes, the king of Babylon was never in any of them to fall to earth.
Dante felt the same way.
All right, well, we'll agree to disagree on that. I think that's a fair.
We've had to do that for almost every topic.
How do you think the king of Babylon got there?
Well, as I said, I don't think it's literal. It's poetic of him being in a position.
Why does he need to warn him since God directed him to that position and put him in that position? Why is he bringing him down, the king of Babylon, since God determines what the kings do and all that?
Oh, easy, because that's what he wants to do. Like, same thing with Pharaoh. I can't get the verse on it, but if you read it, the Most High hardened Pharaoh's heart so he wouldn't let the people go. But if you read on, he speaks about how he did this himself just so he could show his power.
He created the scenario, the struggle that hardened his heart. Sure, I'll give you that.
So the Most High didn't harden his heart.
No, he created the situation where Pharaoh hardened his own heart.
Right. Yeah.
I'll get back to you on that, because there's scriptures that exist. I don't know off the top of the head, but there's verses that speak about the Most High hardening people's hearts. I'll get back to you.
Well, that eliminates free will, doesn't it?
I don't believe in free will.
Well, that's your problem right there.
I think we just discovered why we disagree on every point.
Oh, okay, but hold on a second though. If you go to what is that, Ephesians, the first chapter. If you go there, it speaks about the Most
Do you
High.
pray?
What was that?
Do you pray?
Yeah, he pays his taxes. He's going to.
You son of a bitch! No, but do you pray? Do you speak to the God?
Telling Jesus.
Yes.
So he's talking to himself.
Wait a second. What are you trying to say?
Are you speaking to the God when you pray?
Are you not supposed to do that? That's what I remember reading in the
I don't know, but not if you don't have free will, you're not doing it. He's doing it through you.
Well,
So he's talking to himself.
Okay, let's put it this way. I have a buddy who breaks it down the right way. Here's how I understand it. Let's look at it this way. You have the free will to wear a blue or white or gray shirt, or put on whatever sneakers you want, or wear a pair of glasses when you drive, or sunglasses, whatever. You have you can do any of that. You can eat the whatever you choose to buy, right? You can do that, but you cannot alter the way that your life is heading. God has all of that.
Well, then I'm not doing that. I'm just following a program, a script.
Yeah, well, we're all living in the Most High's movie. He has control.
Okay, but now sin's impossible.
Imagine. I'll just give a thought. Imagine having
Sin's
a God
impossible.
that always makes it that you're wrong each and every time, and you're predetermined to always be wrong and always be corrected and have the wrong type of doctrine. While there are others with the correct knowledge, while you'll never be able to achieve, because by your logic, that is the predetermined world that we live in.
Look, if it's predetermined and we're following God's plan, to the T, because God controls everything, then it's not possible to do something against God.
You can't disobey if you don't have a choice.
Well,
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that you can't believe in sin. That would be contradictory.
All right, well, hold on a second. Let me give the rundown on how I view it. You can't alter the way that your life's heading. For an example, the Most High has all that set up. However, you do have, I guess you could say, the free will to wear whatever you want, to eat what you want, to wear what shoes you want. Little stuff like that. The Most High doesn't really care what you do on that, but it's already predetermined what your future is. Like, I'll give an example. I quoted it earlier. Proverbs.
This conversation.
No, hold on. Proverbs chapter 16 and verse 4. Right, the Most High made all things for Himself, even the wicked, for the day of evil. Right, so the Most High made all these things for Himself. He already knows.
And he just needs something to throw on the fire.
Okay, so no, the way that I interpret that one is it's not saying that the Lord prepares Himself, the wicked prepare themselves for the day of judgment, and they lead themselves to their own temptations and their own folly.
He gives them the
Lord
choice.
follows His own will. Yeah,
Okay,
it's not saying the Lord is making them fucking be wicked.
Okay, but ETT, even if He allows us to do the things that He doesn't care about, that would still make sin impossible because He doesn't care about the things we can actually change.
What's sin though?
Going against God, doing something He doesn't want you to do.
Also, I would ask you. So does that mean that God puts us in a caste system that we can't escape, like Hinduism? So we're always going to be stuck in our tier no matter what.
Well,
Yeah, the reincarnation is pointless too, because you can't move upwards.
That's an interesting topic because the Canaanites thought you had to sin, not the Canaanites. The Canaanites thought you had to escape God.
Here's how I'll respond. Because you see, here's the misunderstanding. Because you guys know about the Christian doctrine, right? Christianity teaches that Christ came to bring everybody to salvation, but Christ says that He came for only a handful of people. Let me give you a verse. If you go to Matthew chapter 17,
Just the dark ones.
No, just
Don't get them white ones in there.
Christ said, "I pray for the ones you have given me out of the world, but I pray not for the world." Right? So Christ didn't pray for the world. Right? So Christ only came for a handful amount of people, and He knows His elect number, which, as the scriptures tell you, is 144,000 people and then a remnant of people, but it's going to be a small number. So Christ doesn't want everyone, and that's definitely.
Well,
Yeah.
hold
Who are
on,
those
pause. Do you know who the 144,000 are and what they represent?
I know who they
Yeah,
are.
the 12,000 men from each of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel.
Nah,
Wrong.
Do you know
Peruvian basket weavers. Sorry.
Yeah.
Wait a
it's
second.
going to be the number of my base Masonic brothers that are left alive when time comes.
I mean, if you read the verse, it tells you that there was 12,000.
I don't think so.
I thought it was only 33 of you guys.
Revelation chapter 7.
No. It's in reference to the fallen and the allotment that was lost and cast down into Tartarus. And the 144 are the virgins who have not been defiled by women, and they shall be the ones to lead the charge to the to Revelations, essentially, alongside with most likely the two witnesses will be a part of the 144,
Okay,
and they're going to bring
Women or prophecy? Women, prophecy, or churches?
Okay, wait. So you're saying God's
And
army?
then there's, hold up, pause. And then there's a great multitude. There's the great multitude, which are those who are resurrected in Christ, and those who would to face judgment, or maybe not the ones facing judgment. I always forget because I haven't studied it in a while.
Okay, so you're telling me God's going to raise up basically this army, and they're going to be led by these turbo incel virgins.
Sure. Well, technically, you can't say that they're incel because if you think about the angels that came down in Sodom and Gomorrah, they wanted to be fucked. So.
Look, I'm saying
Imagine-
if you
It was
raise
No, I don't know. I just made a very good point there.
look, if you raise 144 virgins that were adults when they died, it was involuntary.
He's gone, bro. He couldn't withstand Tog's blast.
It was too powerful. I just fucking Exodia his ass. No,
So he was one of those the Hebrew Israelite people, right?
I have no idea.
I don't think so.
Are you sure?
I've never met him before.
Yeah, no, he
He
didn't
seemed
really.
nice.
The only thing that maybe that would be anything that a Hebrew Israelite would say Jesus was black. Here he is.
Yo, can you guys hear me? My
Yes.
data disconnected for a minute. Am I loud and clear?
No sense.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Mine does that all the time. You're on your phone then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your image isn't the same, but that's
Okay,
fine.
okay, hold on. Let me say this real quick. So, William, I just wanted to ask you because you said something along the lines that in prophecy churches are referred to as women. Could you elaborate on that, please?
In prophecy, oftentimes churches are it's like a code. The prophecy is interpreted women as churches and like beasts as kingdoms. And I don't have all the verses because I'm on my cell phone too. Like, but you can find where the Bible the Bible interprets itself. It tells you what they are.
Okay, well, let me say this. I don't necessarily disagree. I agree that the Bible does call kingdoms beast. I do agree with you on that. But as far as the church being a woman, the Bible refers to Israel as a comely and delicate woman. I'll give you an example. Jeremiah.
The harlot is a woman too, and that's a church.
Hold on a second. We got to talk about that. Hold on. Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 2. Lord likened Israel to a comely and delicate woman. You said the harlot is the church. The harlot is talking about Mystery Babylon the Great, right?
Well, the harlots are the churches that come from the Catholic Church.
You also
She's
give
the
the
mother of all harlots.
Well, hold on a second. If you go to Revelation chapter 17, verse 18, it says, "And the woman that you see is that great city who reigns over the kings of the earth." So a church is a city.
But Jerusalem is often considered a bride as well, just like all the people are. But and if you read the Bible code, water is considered nations, people, and tongues.
Hosea, for the love of God, married a prostitute.
Okay, hold on. Let me stay on.
I'm sorry, this is a huge misunderstanding though. So the word harlot gets translated into the Bible from Middle English, right? And from that meaning, from that translation, it's a young man, not a prostitute.
That makes it even hotter.
Man vagabond.
Okay, but hold on. I'm genuinely sincere with trying to understand William's position on this. You're saying that are you saying the Roman Catholic Church is basically the whore that we read about in Revelation?
The Roman Catholic Church is baptized paganism that goes back to Mystery Babylon, the Babylonian religion of the Chaldeans. That's what I'm saying, and all the stuff that has come from that point onward that is still embraced and considered now Christianity.
But it says that the woman is a city though in Revelation chapter 17 verse 18. So if it's a religious system or a church, how can the church be a city?
Just remember that Rome is one of the 7 churches, so that's contradictory.
It depends on the context of the sentence and what's being talked about, of course.
Okay, who's
Real quick, I missed part of it. Are you saying that Israel is interpreted as a woman and that's the city?
No, the city. Hold on, let me elaborate. I brought up to say that Israel is referred to as a comely and delicate woman, but that's a separate topic from this. I wasn't.
She's a
aware of
church.
that. Okay, but that's a different subject. But I want to keep on this. The great city, right? Mystery Babylon is talking about the United States, is what it's talking about. And if it's churches, well, who is the church?
Well, how do you know it's talking about the United States? You tried to make that earlier, and we all seem to disagree.
Yeah, unless we're in the 1600s and then it talks about the UK. And then if it's about another 100 years before that, then it talks about the Spanish.
Well, I
And then the
agree
Romans,
with
and then
you.
the Greeks, and then
People read this back then. I agree that we come to that conclusion, but it wasn't meant for people to know. Like, I'll give an example. Back in the 1st and 2nd century, people thought that Christ was going to return back then, so they would try to interpret the prophecies back then with what they see. I definitely agree. That's true. They did that. But, now we're in a time now of figuring these things out, right? But I'm trying to understand is if this is the church, right? If you go to the next chapter, which is chapter 18, where it speaks about the destruction of this, as he says, the churches, well, that doesn't correlate. How are these churches making the merchants of the earth rich by importing and selling merchandise? That's what the whole chapter talks about, if you ever read it.
Okay. You don't gain money from importing. I meant to say this earlier, but you gain money from exporting.
Yeah, exactly. But that proves my point that the merchants of the earth are becoming rich off of selling their merchandise over here.
Yeah, but that describes every prosperous merchant from now until the dawn of mankind that had merchants.
Merchants also be Jews.
Yeah, but have you ever read the chapter?
I've never read it like you've read it.
Have you ever read it before? Because if you didn't, how could you have an argument with me if you never read it?
I never, because every detail you give me doesn't specifically describe America. That's why.
Hold up, the merchants are bad. Synagogue of Satan. Maybe we're on to something.
Well, that's a different subject. But what I'm trying to learn is how is this talking about a church? What merchandise is being imported by ships to be sold at church? Whatever. That's what I want to know, because that's like 60-70% of the chapter is talking about that. Not to mention, it speaks about. Let's see, what can I use for an example?
Okay, but isn't a church two or more people?
Well, the church. I'll explain this. The church just means when a group of people comes together, and to teach.
Yeah.
Right. So if you come to a home with a group and teach there, then yeah, that's the church.
Yeah. Who imports and exports?
What was that?
Who imports and exports? Is that people too?
Yeah, well, actually, if you read the chapter, it mentions the shipmen, right? The people who are on these boats as well, standing afar off for the fear of her torment. And then it also refers to it as that great city. So how is this church as if it's talking about such a great city who reigns over the kings of the earth?
Yeah, I just say all these things. This seems like a metaphor for groups of people. A church even seems like a metaphor for a group of people.
I mean, man, you admitted you never even really read the chapter, so how can you really argue with what?
Well, first, I didn't admit that. I said I never read it like you read it.
So did you read it or not?
Oh, I am positive I have read every sentence in the Bible.
Okay, fine.
That doesn't mean I remember it or I read it in order. Like definitely read it in order.
I'll respect that then. I'm gonna hop off in a couple minutes, but we'll go for maybe 10 more minutes. But yeah, man. Yeah, let me ask you an example. What do you think John 3:16 means?
Was that the God so loved the earth he gave his only son? That one?
Yeah. Well, what does that?
The only begotten son.
Oh, I know what it
I
means.
mean, it's usually interpreted to mean that he sacrificed his son for mankind.
But did you ever hear the idea that Israel is the world there? Have you ever saw those precepts?
I've heard people say Israel is the world, or the new Israel is the world.
Could I show you why we say that?
I think it's a reference to Genesis 15.
I mean, if you want, like, I'll just accept that that's how people read it.
Oh, okay, hold on a second. Well, even if that's how people read it, it doesn't mean that they're right. You got to go precept upon precept. If you go to Isaiah chapter 45, verse 17, it says that Israel should become a world without end. Right. So Israel is going to become a world without end. And also, as I showed you in earlier, you go to John chapter 17, verse 9. It says that Christ said, this is Christ speaking, I pray for the ones you've given me out of the world, but I pray not for the world. So I want to have to ask, wait, if Christ said he didn't pray for the world, how did he die for the entire world? And then another one for you, if you go to Matthew chapter 15, verse 24, Christ said, I came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Right? So Christ said he only came to save the Israelites. But that's another topic of discussion, but I just want to bring that out on John 3:16.
I'm not sure what the point is.
But you were saying that means that God loves and can save anybody, right? That's what you heard to me.
No, I said people usually interpret that to mean that God sacrificed his son for the world.
What do you think it means?
I have no clue. I don't think it's actually possible to correctly interpret.
I know what it means.
I think it's highly unlikely to ever properly interpret the Bible.
Okay. Well,
I'm posting it.
William, you there, man? Did you hear what I said about John 3:16?
For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son. That one.
Yeah. Well, what do you think that means?
What was it? I didn't hear what you said. I just know the verse.
I said Isaiah 45, verse 17 says that Israel shall become a world of its own, right? And then in John 17, verse 9, Christ said, I pray not for the world, but for those that you've given me out of the world, right? So I'm trying to understand, how does that mean the entire world? Because I understand that the world there is talking about the nation of Israel, because I just shown where Israel is referred to as the world of its own.
You lost me.
I take it that you never heard those verses before, right? To as the world of its own.
You lost me.
I take it that you never heard those verses before, right?
No, you just threw them at me really quick, and I'm trying to piece them together. You said them very quick.
Let me say it slow. I'll say one of them slow. Isaiah chapter 45, verse 17 says Israel shall become a world without end. So I shown where Israel is referred to as a world of its own, right? So I would argue that John 3:16 is actually referring to the nation of Israel and not the entire world.
I think it goes back even further. I think I said, if you look into Genesis 15,
Jacob.
With Jacob, the promise of Jacob, and this is the covenant, the blood covenant that is made between Abraham. This is before the circumcision. So that's what it's in reference to. Hell, it even mentions
Ooh,
the
sounds
lamb and light.
Your take on that, ETT, sounds unfortunate, because that leaves a whole group of people that were not part of the line of Jacob. I mean, most of us, of course, would be in that line of Jacob, but there are still some that are not in that line, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, but God doesn't want everybody, though, and that's the thing.
No, he doesn't. He seems to. He gave us laws so we could determine.
So why is that unfortunate then?
What do you mean?
Verse 18.
Okay, hold on a second. So I just wanted to bring something up. This is a good topic. What do you think about the new covenant?
I think it's the
You're shifting gears so fast from thing to thing. I don't know. What do I think about the new covenant?
Yeah, you know what the new covenant is, right?
I need to know what you think it is before we go any further.
Okay, well, let me just say this before I say what I think it is. I'll explain what most Christians believe the new covenant is. Most people tell you that the new covenant was established when Christ went on the cross. You know, that his blood being shed, brought us from the Old Testament, not Old Testament, Old Covenant, into the new covenant. So at this current day and time, according to that ideology, we're living under the new covenant. Would you agree with that, or what's your standpoint?
Yeah, I guess you'd say the new covenant. I mean, as far as it went from the Jews to the Gentile. Yeah.
Okay, but here's the problem though. Do you know the qualifications of living under the new covenant?
Tell me.
All right, that's fine. If you go to Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 31 on down, it also reiterates it in the book of Hebrews, the 8th chapter. It speaks about that in the new covenant, no man would teach his neighbor about the Lord, because from the smallest to the greatest, everyone would know the Lord. And then it says that they would all know the law on their inward parts. So my understanding is we're not living under the new covenant today, simply off of those 2 points. Hell, we're on here having a discussion about the Bible, right? So the part where it says that from the least to the greatest, they shall all know the Lord. Well, we don't see that. And then it also says they all would know the law on their inward parts. They would all know the law on their heart. So we don't know the entire law off the top of our head right now. So
would you say the entire law? See, here you go again, because now you're going to impute the civil law and everything else on it.
Okay, can you name all 10 commandments?
You want me to do Exodus 20 all the way through?
No, I'm asking you, can you off the top of your head name all of the 10 commandments?
All right, I'm the Lord your God. You shall have no other God before me. You shall make no graven images and bow down and worship it. Let's see the third one. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Remember my Sabbath to keep it holy. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not murder. You shall not covet. And you shall not steal. Is that all of them? Is that
honor thy father and mother?
Wait,
that was the fifth, right? That was the fifth.
Do you see my point that you didn't know all of them? You knew a few of them. I'll give you credit. You knew more than.
Wait a minute. Whoa. No. It doesn't mean that I don't know them. You just had me recite them off the cuff.
No, you don't understand. You don't understand what I'm saying. The scripture said that in the new covenant, you would know the law on the inward part. You couldn't name all 10.
No. Stop. You didn't just. No. What it means is, ask me if I know when it's wrong to do those things, rather than try and recite exactly the law that you're talking about. It doesn't mean that I don't know these things are wrong. That's written on my conscience.
Or whether you even know them correctly or not.
Yeah, if I've never seen the Bible and I know that they're wrong, then I'm still keeping the law.
For example, do you know what is the one about how do you go about honoring thy mother and thy father? What is that? What is that one?
You're asking me?
Yeah, sure.
Well, I wouldn't know that law off the top of the head, but I know it speaks about
obey.
But you see, here it proves my point though that we don't know the entire law off the top of our head, where we can directly quote all of them, so we can't be.
That's not what it means. It does not mean that you will be able to quote them like that. It means that you will know right from wrong, and do you not?
Well, if you guys are referring to the law of the heart, that one's also in reference to those who don't believe as well. In a sense, it's whatever they feel in their own intention, God directs them by that, not necessarily anything else. So for the unbeliever, they know, in a sense, their law by their own heart, their judgment. And the Lord, if they don't believe, will judge them by that.
All right.
In that sense.
So what about...
What is the greatest of the laws, E.T.?
The greatest of the laws is to, you're supposed to love the Most High. That's the greatest, right?
Is that what Jesus said?
Well, you're supposed to love your neighbor as well.
That's the 10 Commandments.
Well, that is the greatest law. I'd agree with him in that one.
No, it is. What I'm saying is Jesus just said the greatest of the law is the 10 Commandments. The first four, the first four have to do with your relationship to God. Last six, and last six has to do with your relationship with people. So he's just giving the 10 Commandments. That's really all that he's giving.
Yeah, but he that doesn't mean the other laws don't exist. But that's another subject. We won't get off onto that now. Real quick though, here's the other qualification. It says that from the least to the greatest, all would know the Lord. So the fact that we're all on here having a discussion to prove if God even exists or whatnot is what we started with. That proves we can't be under the new covenant, because it said the least to the greatest would all know the Most High. I mean, we could read it. That's what it says. Do you agree?
I agree. That's how you read it.
Wait, do you not agree the text says from the least to the greatest they would all know the Lord?
Right, but John the Baptist is the least. Even Jesus even says so, and obviously Jesus would be the Father, I should say, would be the greatest in the kingdom. So those are given by that. We already know in a sense who the least is and the greatest.
I'm not going to focus on the least and the greatest. I'm going to focus on know the Lord. What do you mean know the Lord? Because you seem to have a different metric than I might be applying.
Oh, well, I know the scriptures say, if you love me, keep my commandments, right? So
no, I said it didn't say love. It says know the Lord. You will agree that your text says know the Lord from the least to the greatest. Is that not correct? Is that what you said?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, so what does it mean to know the Lord?
It's easy. It knows that you're supposed to follow the law, and that you believe that Christ was the Messiah. And that's what
now, where do you find that that's the definition of knowing the Lord?
I'll answer that, but if my understanding is false, what other way is there to break that down? What else would it mean by
let's hear your understanding. Explain it.
Yeah, well, when you deal with the scriptures, it speaks about that you would know me if you keep my commandments. That's how you show your love towards the Most High, is if you obey. And even Christ spoke about this. I believe that's someone could pull up the book of John, chapter 15.
Does it say in there that you must read my scriptures to know me?
There's not an exact verse that says that. However, the way
actually there
is.
is.
The way you would learn about Christ is if you read the Bible, obviously, right?
Okay, no,
I don't listen to Satan.
Absolutely not. That's not how the disciples learned about Christ.
Well, for us today, how would we learn about Christ?
One way is to read the
Bible. The
Bible.
Father draws him to us.
Draws us to him, yeah.
That's how the Father
Yeah, but
does
how-
it.
but-
It's all by
okay,
God's
we-
hand.
I-
He
I
answered the
agree with
call.
That's the word I was looking for right there, Tug. The shepherd will call, and his flock will know his voice and go to him. And where's Irenic?
Right, but how would you? Right, I'm not
Tend to
disagreeing
cheat.
with that, but you have to read the scriptures in order to understand it. So you can be drawn to it. That's certainly true. But the way you get a proper understanding is by reading the scriptures. Right?
It's by fellowship of the Holy Ghost.
No, I don't believe that. I don't know that that's a necessary prerequisite to know
Fellowship,
God.
fellowship of the within the Holy Ghost is going through Scripture with everyone, with your brothers in Christ. That's what fellowship is. The Holy Ghost guiding us through the Scriptures, and it's also seeking that of in a sense of priestly, those who in a sense know more about Scriptures, like seeking a rabbi, so to speak. So often scholars would be in a sense how we would look if you want to take an academic approach to it.
Okay, can I ask something real quick? Dealing with Jesus, right? Do you think that Jesus loves everybody? Like anybody that comes to Christ, Christ will love them.
What'd you say? Sorry.
Love. You know, I thought about that because earlier you asked about hate too, and I was thinking along the lines of I love ducks, but I don't love all ducks. There's specific ducks I don't like, and I have to call them and stuff like that. But I don't know. I was just thinking as far as when you say, does God love all people? Does he love us generally, or does he love us individually? What do you say? Does he love us all individually?
Well, I'll say this: does the Most High love every individual person that was ever born? I guess we could say.
I don't know. I'd have to ask him. Shit.
Wait, so you agree that you don't know that?
I agree. I don't know anything. You haven't heard me make a knowledge claim yet.
Well, what about like let me give an example. What do you think about say Luke chapter 19 verse 27? Right, Christ said, "Bring my enemies before me, and any of them that would not have me rule over them, slay them before me." Does that sound like love from Christ there, or like what do you think about that?
It sounds like a lot better than torturing someone for eternity. Yeah.
But
If my child was a serial killer, I would still love my child. But if he's murdering up everybody and doing bad things, I'll shoot him myself.
right, but I don't believe in the everlasting torture in hell. That's not my position, so we can't really.
Right. I just said it was better, and see, I would say that is loving.
Well, here's the thing. Are you guys familiar? Have you guys ever looked into the BHI? Do you know who those guys are?
The who?
The Black Hebrew Israelites. Do you guys
Yeah, I know who they are.
Oh, those guys are cool.
Yeah.
Kiss my boot, Whitey.
Sorry, guys. Right. But see, here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. I think this is an interesting conversation to talk about. Have you guys ever heard of the doctrine? And this is a popular one among the Hebrew Israelite teaching. They teach that in the kingdom of Christ, there's going to be servants there. Did you guys ever hear of that teaching before?
Oh yeah, UFO.
Is that what you are? Before you start representing views, because you got Seventh-day Adventists all fucked up, are you speaking from experience, or are you speaking because that's what you heard they believe?
I would say that I have a few years of experience dealing with Hebrew Israelites,